Okay, so it's Tuesday, September 11th. In grade 10, we have two math courses. I don't know if you remember, there's the one part is called Geometry, Measurement, and Finance, and we kind of shorten the name and call it GUMP. Okay, it's not really pronounced that way or spelled that way, but GMF GUMP. And the second half in this next semester is NERF, Numbers, Relations, and Functions. This one here deals more with using finance, using interest, dealing with the introduction to trig and parallel lines and angles, and measurement, conversions between metric and English systems. And usually I leave that to the end of towards the end of the semester. I start out with looking at trigonometry. The other one that we'll do, if you haven't taken already in next year, is based on mostly algebra. And so I find, or a lot of students find, it's a little more difficult. This one here is generally easier, and people are more interested in it because they're dealing with things that they actually can feel, money that you're going to deal with. So yesterday I gave you that learner's preference. If you haven't already completed, please put it in my basket. I was looking for a SMART goal, if you remember. Some people put things like to pass with a reasonable mark. It's not a bad answer, except that I don't know what a reasonable mark is. What's reasonable to you? For a lot of you, maybe just 60. But if it is 60, say it. If you think reasonable is 80, then put 80. You want to be specific. To do better than last year. Well, I don't know how you did last year. Okay. If you made 30 last year and better could be 40. Well, 40 is still not a pass. So, you got to be a little more specific. Really, what is you're trying to do in math? Complete the course with a high mark. Again, I don't know what a high mark is. So those are kind of sad. Other ones are work harder, study more. How do you study more? It's hard to study math anyway. Math, you do it by hand. So really, you're not studying much. You're really doing things. You're trying to complete assignments. You might be able to study history. Math, you don't really study. And work harder. My God. I remember hearing that when I was a kid. Work harder. Well, harder than what? What's your benchmark here? So you got to look at something that you can measure. So when I ask you to do a SMART goal, I'm trying to get something like in the next semester ending January 27th, I will complete all my math assignments and pass them in on the due date. That's specific. That's going to help me get better, do better in math. It's something that I can actually measure. It has a time, and it has a really specific goal. So in anything, not just math, anytime you're trying to do something, you should consider things like that. If you're trying to improve yourself in anything, if it was in sports or it's at your job, you set these little goals. And that way you have something ahead of you that you can grasp. All right, so today, remember I said I was going to tell you what you're going to be learning in simple language. I'm going to review your course outline. We already talked about how we're going to mark. I'm just going to look at some of the topics. We're going to review how to simplify fractions. That's an old thing. This is not new stuff, so it's just a way of getting your head back into math mode. And convert fraction to decimals and decimals to fractions. How many people here already know how to do that? Well, maybe when you see it. Okay, good. Once you see it, sometimes it'll click on right away. Does everybody know what a fraction is? Okay? Right, it's one number over a number. So what we're going to, and you know what a decimal is? It's a number with a point on it. So we're just going to go from one to the other. And simplify, and I'll explain that too. Okay, so on your course outline, when you go into your pickup box, you'll see that there is a copy or a document file that you can download on your computer just to review these. These are just based on standard goals for your course here, a work ethic. You've already been pretty well in line with this. What you need, of course, for math is just pencils, a scientific calculator. We have some calculators out there. Your cell phones are not calculators, so don't use them. I know you have there, but they're not scientific calculators. So don't think that this is the reason why I can have this out. Calculators are a separate tool that I'll provide for you if you don't have one already. Make sure you're here on time. Your class is first thing in the morning, and generally I'll try and have the grade 9s in here first. Another thing I suggest is that because you're doing English and math and maybe science and some other course, keep them organized. There are some extra binders here, and once you get your assignments, we can put them in that binder. We can store them right here, and that way you'll have it something that you can refer to when you will have to do a quiz or a test. So what are we going to do in the next couple of weeks? We're going to be looking at this unit here on geometry. So I'm just going to do it in probably reverse order here. There'll be a unit we do a measurement. Like I said, it's just converting from English system to math, like going from miles to kilometers and kilometers to miles, or from centigrade degrees to Fahrenheit, or Fahrenheit degrees to centigrade. That's conversions. That's the measurement. And then calculating how to find surface areas. If you're going to go into trades, you need to know how big something is. You know, how much tablecloth you need to get to cover a table, or how much wood you need to build a certain type of object. So you need how to figure out how much area things are. And then finance, again, that's basically learning how to work with setting up accounts, how to calculate simple and compound interest, things that you're going to use all your life. These are things that you're going to need in your daily life when you get on your own. And some of you already are on your own, so you know that you have to balance your budget. And geometry, that's basically looking at trigonometry. We're going to talk about Pythagoras' theorem, just a review, going into SOHCAHTOA. And then we're going to be looking at things like parallel lines and angles, how the relationships are. The assignments and how we're going to be calculating them. I already talked about this yesterday, and your pass mark. So that is your course outline. So just look at what we mean by simplifying fractions. If we have a number, 18 over 27, it is a fraction, but it's not its most simplified form. So we can change that into something smaller. And how would we do that? Well, we need to find something that's common between 18 and 27. We need to find a number that goes into both of them. We call that factoring. So what are the numbers that would be the same for 18 and 27? Well, what I always start with is the smallest one, 2. 2 is an even number. Well, 2 goes into 18. Because 8 is if you look at the last number here, the last digit, 8 is an even number. So 2 will go into it. If you look at the other number, 27, the last digit here, it's not even. So 2 won't go into it. So we can't use 2. Then I go to 3. Well, is 3 a factor of 18? Yes. Is 3 a factor of 27? Yes. Well, I know this because I'm doing it in my head. But if you don't know, you just use your calculator. You take your calculator, take 18 divided by 3, 27 divided by 3. So if I list all of my factors for 18, I am going to have 2, because it goes into 18. I have 3. I have 6. And I have 9. And I can keep on going. But if I start with 27, I know that 2 won't go in there, but 3 will. And then I go to the next number. It could be 6, and then 9. Well, 9 is the biggest number that I have now that can go into both. If I go to 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, I don't have any other numbers. The only number I'm going to get is going to be 18, and 18 won't go into 27. So the biggest number that's common between these two is 9. So I know I can divide both of those by 9. So if I take 18 and divide it by 9, I'm going to get 2. And if I take 27 and divide it by 9, I'm going to get 3. So I simplified it. I went from a big fraction to a small one, because I found a factor that was common for both, the 9. Wind up. I gotta sit down. So here you see I've taken my 9s and reduced it to 2/3. Likewise, if I had another number like 36, I'd look at 36. Well, 2 will be divided into 36. 3 is a factor. 4 is a factor. All of these numbers will go into 36 evenly. 64, I start with 2 because remember, 6 and 4 are even numbers. So I can go 2, 4, 8. Well, my common factor right there is 4. Oops. So I can go and divide both of these by 4. Now I have 9/16. Sometimes we're not sure whether that is the smallest we can go. So we ask ourselves, can that be divided anymore? Well, 3 will go into this, but 3 won't go into 16. So 9/16 is the smallest you can have. Okay? That's what we call simplifying, bringing it down to the smallest we can get. So the other way of doing it is putting all of those factors in there. 6, we can say, okay, what are the factors of 6? What makes up 6? What two numbers multiply to give you 6? Well, 2 times 3. And I look at the numbers. What are the numbers that'll give me 20? Well, anything ends in 0. What number is common for it? What do you think? 10, right? 10 will go into it. 10 will go into anything that ends in 0. So that means we're going to have 10. And how many 10s in 20? 2. So those are the factors right here. So what is the common between 6 and 20? They're 2. So that means I can take 6 divided by 2. I can take 20 and divide it by 2. And I reduce it to the smallest form, 3/10. Okay? So what two numbers give you that? And if you set something that's common, then you know that can be divided into both. That's another way of simplifying it. So I put the steps here. And you don't have to worry about this. It just gives you in algebraic form. Now let's quickly look at some that we can try. 4/16. What do you think would be common between 4 and 16? You know when I use the first time, I say, is the top number common for both? Is 4? Yeah, 2 is. So I could use 2. I can say, okay, let's divide this by 2. And when I do that, I'm going to have 2/16 divided by 2 is going to be 8. Is there something common there? Well, 2 again, right? And that's going to give me 1/2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that's my simplified fraction. But here's a little trick. Every time you have a fraction, always ask yourself, can I take the top one and divide it into the bottom? Try that first. So I'll do that here. Can I divide the top one into the bottom one? So let's try that. Well, 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. So there we go. We simplified it. Here, 25/75. 5 will go into it, but before we do that, let's see, can 25 go into both? Let's try that first, just for the heck of it. We could skip a lot of steps that way. It's a quick way of doing it. So I say, well, can I divide this by 25? Of course. 25 divided by 25 is going to equal 1. 75. If you have 75 cents, how many quarters do you have? Quarters, 25 cents, right? So how many quarters? 3. So 75 divided by 25, it's early, don't worry about it, I'm like that too. So 25/75 is 1/3. If we did it like you said, we could divide by 5. And you have to do it again. So I divide this by 5 and divide this by 5. I'm going to have 5/25. Then I have to divide it by 5 again, right? See now, 5. Oh, that's 15, sorry. So it's early for me too. So 25 divided by 5 is 1, and 75 divided by 5 is 15. No, 175 into 5 is 15. And 5 is 5. I got to line up this board after. 5 over 15. Now I can divide it by 5 again. Divide it by 5 again. 1 over 3. So I get the same thing, only I did it in 2 steps instead of 1. So the same thing with all of these. I look at, say, can I divide the top one by the bottom one first? 15, does 21 divided by 15? No. So what number do you think might go into both? Well, I could try 5, but 5 doesn't do it. 2? No. What's the next number? 3, right? So I look at 3. 15 divided by 3. I got to line this up. Sorry, it's really bad. It comes up. Okay. There we go. 15 divided by 3 and 21 divided by 3. So how many 3's in 15? You use your calculator, you would get 5, and 21 divided by 3, 7. So there's your answer. Okay. 8, 18. Well, if I divide 18 by 8, I'm not going to get an even number. So I look at 2. Start with the lowest number. 8 divided by 2 is, and 18 divided by 2 is 9. And I can't go any further. All right? So that's how we do it. You try to take the top one first and to put it in the bottom. If it doesn't, start dividing by 2 or by 3 and start working like that. Good. So that's how we simplify fractions. Actually, and here's the last one. I'll show you a quick one before we move on to converting, is if you have numbers that end in 0. Anything that ends in 0 is going to be divisible by 10. But what you can do is just you cancel the zeros. If I divide it by 10, I'm left with 2 over 5. 20 divided by 10 is 2. 50 divided by 10 is 5. So that's a quick way of doing it too. Okay? So zeros are really easy to, numbers with zeros easy to reduce. Six minutes, 7 minutes. Now, to change it to a decimal, how do we do that? Well, we got calculators. The easiest thing is to take the top number, you put it in your calculator, 9, you divide it by 16, and it's going to give you a number, 0 point something. Now, I don't know what it is by heart, but when I put it into my calculator, I got 0.56. That's the decimal fraction. What we got to remember is that they ask us to put the answer to the nearest hundredth. 100 means to 2 places. So if I have a decimal, okay, the first place is 10. Tenths. The second place is hundreds. The third place is thousands. So depending on how they tell me to round it off. So 0.56, the nearest hundred. If you were asked round it to the nearest tenth, then I look at this number. Anything that is 5 or bigger makes that number go up. So because this is 6, okay, is bigger than 5 or more, then that number 5 becomes a 6. So 0.56 rounded to the nearest tenth becomes a 0.6. So always look at this number. Is it, if this was 0.54, this is not 5, not 6, then I round to the nearest tenth, it would be just 0.5. But if it's 5 or more, then I go to 6. Okay? Then get that up higher. Our smartboard is down pretty low. Now, how do we go back? Well, if I have a decimal fraction, 0.16, I look at how many places after the decimal. 16, there's 1, 2. Remember the first one is a tenth, second one is 100. So that means it's 16 over 100. Now I simplify it. What is going to be common for both? Well, I could use 2 if I wanted to. And that would give me 8 over 50. But I still can reduce that further, so I divide by another 2. And I get 4 over 25. 2 goes in here, but not into here. So I can't go any further. So that is my lowest number. I could either divide it by 4 right away or by 2 times 2, take it in 2 steps. If I had a number 0.1 converted to a fraction, well, what's that number? 1. And what is it over? Well, it's only one place. So that's 1 over 10. If I have this, that number is the top. How many places? Well, it's 2. So I put 2 zeros. If I have 3 numbers, then it's 1 over 1,000. Okay? What does it mean if you have a number like this? What is the bar over there? Anybody know? Exactly. Continuing, repeating, never stopping. So it really means, you're right, it's this number goes on forever. Okay? So we put the bar over there, means repeating. So how do we write that as a fraction? Well, this is not the same as this. How is this as a fraction? This is what? 3 over what? Is it going to be over 10, 100, or 1,000? Over 10. Okay. Now, what if I wrote this? What is that going to be? Now, here's the trick. It's no longer over 10. It's still 3, but it's 1 less. It's 3 over 9. Not 10, but 9. Now, let's reduce that. What is that? I can divide both by 3, right? To simplify it. And now I have 1/3. So 0.3 repeating is the same as 1/3. And if you were to take your calculator and take 1 and divide it by 3, let's see if we can get a calculator on here. Because seeing is believing. I'm going to take 1 divided by 3 equals, see, it goes on forever. So anytime you have that bar, it means it just keeps repeating, and it would be a fraction. So that's 3 over 9, or 1/3. Yeah. Now, what if the number was like this? That means that's repeating. So I write it as 33 over what? 90, 99. Not 100, because this is 33 over, because it's 2 places, 100. But if we have a bar, we just take 1 less. And that, if we reduce it, is 1/3. All right, I got about 10 almost finished, so I'm just going to show you your assignment. If you go onto your Dropbox, you're going to see assignment number 1. Oops. you'll see assignment 1, converting fractions. It has a double-sided sheet. I'm only asking you to do the first 4 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so going to your Dropbox. I got to print it out for you. Okay, so I'm going to hand that out. So here, grade 9, grade 10. Math 10. Sometimes I'm not going to be able to print them all out because there's going to be more than one page in the books and stuff. And I'm teaching 3 math classes at a time, and some of you are going to have different levels. So there's your Unit 1 sorry, long one. I'm going to keep this for after. Gump 10. There's no Felix. Pick up. That was your first day. So I didn't put them in there. You're just going to have your course outline. I'm going to hand out your sheets to you right now. And for the home support students, I'm going to add it to their webpage. Okay, so that's it.